I'm Francesca Donnellan. Welcome to Becoming More Human, the podcast. Every generation, through its arts and creativity, explores the same questions. Who am I, and what really matters? We are so often taught how to emulate others, to make other people happy. But how do we access what's good for ourselves and be strong enough to actually claim it? It's a constant practice because we all keep evolving. There are no limits to personal growth. You can start your journey today and get closer to discovering your true self. Give back to the people around you and make the world a better place. Hello listeners, this special episode I recorded in the studio in the iconic Somerset House in London with the CEO of Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK, Andrea Atzori. Spanning a career of over 2 decades, Andrea has been engaged and deployed on the field in major humanitarian relief operations, including but not limited to the Kosovo War of '98, the Angolan Civil War in '99, the Ebola outbreak in 2014, the drought emergency in Angola in 2019, COVID-19 in Africa and Italy, and the Ukrainian war. Andrea is an extraordinary man who's been on a lifelong mission to help others. In 1950, the missionary doctor Francesca founded the University College for Aspiring Missionary Doctors, known by its Italian acronym CUAMM. Today, Doctors with Africa CUAMM has nearly 75 years' experience working in many African countries to fulfil the organisation's central ambition to care for the sick. CUAMM's most important role is on the ground, being on the front line, providing medical supplies, ensuring availability and access to quality primary healthcare through both mobile teams and fixed health facilities. A pioneering charity focused on developing and enhancing healthcare across Africa by creating prevention programmes and support for regional health services. Andrea wants to raise the profile of Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK with the aim to build a new network of stakeholders amongst the country's private sector, individuals and institutions to help on key African issues. Key donors and partners include but not limited to the Vital Foundation and AXA. If you feel compelled to take action and offer individual or organisational support, please head to our website becomingmorehuman.co.uk for more information about donating and getting involved. That's enough from me, so let's jump straight in. I read through, and the listeners have already heard sort of a lot of your professional endeavours, and reading through it myself, I was blown away by everything that you have achieved. You have done so much good across the world for humanitarian aid, and your philanthropic work knows no bounds. It's endless, and I really kind of want to know where that started. Like, where did that start for Andrea? If we go all the way back to when you were a kid almost, is there something that's been a burning desire in you? I know you studied the subject as well at university, and it's something that you're very passionate about. But where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, Francesca, well, you've been too kind. I guess I've been doing the best I could so far, but it's been a long journey. It's definitely started as a kid, and then I studied nursing, and the nursing job was to me quite a good job. I was close to people. I've been seeing, working with sick people. I've been seeing life in a different way, but I think I was afraid, first of all, of routine job. So even at that stage, I was eager to travel, to see something different, to get out from, the day job and the routine and discover something else. There was always something inside me that is asking, what's happening, out there? What's the thing you see on the screen on TV? Yeah. And can we live that life or meet people that live a different life and understand what they feel? I mean, there was really big push for me to travel, to start to travel. And then, of course, as a nurse, you get in contact with, people like Red Cross, Doctors with Africa CUAMM, and they were starting to say, we have this mission, we have this project, why don't you think about it? And that was a bit of something that was inside me, at least to learn, to visit, to travel. But the travel became probably a sort of a passion, and then it became a job. And I feel very lucky about that, because my journey took me to really a feeling, to a job, and I think that is amazing.
that's also very rare, I think, in today's world to have a career that started off with a feeling and a passion, and in a world that is so needed of this. We need to be doing more and looking outside of our own world and our own Western world in this particular instance, and looking further afield. So explain a bit more about Doctors of Africa CUAMM UK. You're the CEO. So what does that involve? Yeah,
so my job in Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK, I think the main job is to keep the passion and the willing of the organization to get down to the big challenges of today, especially in Africa.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to keep the bar very high, motivating people in believing that we can improve the life of many people with good actions, really with action. That's the point. I mean, we need to find a way in which at ground level we are transformative. We can change life in better. And to do so, you have to be on the ground. So really the main job of CUAMM UK, or Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK, is to connect, the organization with the ground, with the field, and see what are the needs of the person, the people, the families, the community, and try to propose together, never alone, propose together with local community some solution. And this solution need the help of everybody. That's another piece of the work. So engaging with everybody in the, let's say, developed world and in Africa, and trying together to find, step by step, not in a rush. So we do long-term projects. That's another key element of CUAMM, because we need the time, again, to change things bottom up. And that takes time. It takes culture. It takes the culture of aid. It takes time to improve services, but investing in the local human resources instead of just doing the work from abroad or just with the short mission. So I think one of the main jobs is to connect and communicate this kind of passion and desire to change people's life to everybody, to all the stakeholders here in the UK, in Europe, US, and engaging them with direct contact with Africa.
And what are you seeing as the biggest challenges facing Africa at the moment?
Well, Africa is facing many challenges. I have at least 3 things that we have to consider. The first one is that the pandemic has left a deep-rooted economic crisis because of the lockdown, because of the less resources that are available after COVID. So there is an economic crisis that is really becoming heavier and heavier at family level. So there are today's family in Africa that are getting poorer in the last 2-3 years, and this is causing a lot of problems.
And COVID's been a big instigator of that.
Absolutely. COVID is being a big push for so many communities to get into poverty, because it's been a cut in the small commerce they had, in the transportation, for example, in free movement that was creating a local economy.
Right.
So that was quite a problem today.
So actually the free movement is something that you need people to be able to move around, to be able to sort of keep that economy going and growing. And then do you also have a challenge with getting the vaccinations in as well?
Vaccination is one of the pieces, but the most important thing was just a simple example. No, you are a mother in a rural African community, okay, and they shut down the market where you trade your goods. Yeah. So maybe you have a small land, you do some maize or whatever, you go to the market, you exchange for salt or sugar, and you cook and you do a meal. Yes. Okay. Even that was, if you shut down the market, you shut down all the informal economy around it, and you leave a family just with the maize and cannot eat maize every day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. So that was a big impact on the local, informal economy, but was a very important piece of the local economy. So that was a problem. The second problem today is that in part of the COVID and this economic crisis, we have new social unrest and conflict. If you see Ethiopia today, we have more than 4 million people in Tigray that are in desperate need for humanitarian aid. And Ethiopia was a stable country before COVID. Mozambique, in the north of Mozambique, there is a region called Cabo Delgado. Okay, I was there a month ago. Capo Delgado has about 2.5 million inhabitants. 1 million of them is an internal displaced people. So there is 1 million people that moved and are living in camps at the moment because of this social unrest that is caused by local conflict. So really this issue of having an Africa that has some stable areas, but also new crises, regional crises, localized crises that are creating a huge number of people on the movement. That are called, internal displaced people if they stay in their own countries, or they're migrants. As they come into Italy, they come into other places, or they move from an African country to another. It's calculated that today in Africa there are about 30 million people that are migrating from their homes or to the same country or moving to another country. So quite a huge number.
Do you feel that the onset of COVID caused a trigger in a new wave of desperation and humanitarian aid, and is this something that you've never seen before, or do you feel like it's like not getting better, and is there more that we need to be doing around this?
COVID was a catalyzer. I've been extensively traveled to Africa, of course, but what I saw is that after the 2 years, one, there was a total distraction from many partners like European countries, the US, because we had the pandemic at home. So we probably overlooked a number of issues that were like already present in Africa. And then, as I said, as the local community are struggling, they are more prone to be, for example, engage in social unrest. They're more prone in radical kind of thinking, and it is causing the second main problem. And the third one that was already there and is real in Africa is climate change. So what we are seeing today, apart from the COVID pandemic, apart from what we see, is that the life of so many community is unbalanced. There was a very fine balance between, for example, the rainy season, the crop, and again the market, and everything that was keeping together somehow in a slow and traditional way, these families basically, that is unbalanced now. So if you go in the south of Angola, we have a big program there. There was a rainy season and a dry season. It was more or less okay. Now, for example, the rainy season has become shorter. So we have floods, for example, during the rain season, and we have a longer dry season, and we have a 50% only production crops. And now our hospitals are full with malnourished kids. So you see from the final kind of effects, but we have to study the root causes of this malnutrition. And the root causes are a complex number of factors, but the end is probably three things that I say. Is the economy, is the stability, and the climate change now. So these are the three main challenges that we have to see and study in the African continent.
You mentioned that you're out there on the ground giving out humanitarian aid during all of this crisis. And what are you seeing from a sort of human-to-human connection and actually being with these people going through something? And what's that like? And could you sort of describe a bit of what you see?
Yeah, this is not an easy question, isn't it? Because what I see in all my travel to Africa is that at the end of the day, everybody wants to improve their life, wants the best thing from the families. And what I see is not different from London or my country. It's really, we're struggling to improve our lives, to be well, to create something for our kids. And that's the same in Africa. The problem is that you have massive issues that a single family cannot take, So what you see when you talk with my African colleagues and what you see really in community locally is that they need an help, and sometimes it's an outside help, to push a little further. And as an organization, we have to be on the field. That's is a must. Talk with the beneficiaries. That's not correct name for beneficiary. I don't like the name beneficiaries, but I like with the partners, the local community. But at the same time, make aware that the government, the local government, in first hand, knows about the problem. And everything we do should be negotiated together. It should not be a CUAMM action or an external action. It should be something that the local community is aware of the need. For example, we do a lot in terms of providing healthcare to women and kids, okay? But that piece of work should not done only by CUAMM. It should done by the local government, the local authority, the local community, and possibly it should be implemented by the local doctor, nurses, professional, because there are so many people of goodwill. There are many professionals in Africa. There are many young people that want to, play a role in their community. That's a big opportunity. So really what I see is an Africa that wants to change, that wants to grow, that wants to prosper. But at the same time, we have to go back to the economy and the stability and the climate change things, because really if we put all the pieces together, we can devise something that is sustainable and it really leads to a better way of life.
And if people are donating, where does the money go to?
Yeah, the donation goes to Africa. So the strength for Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK is to have the footprint in Africa. So we're not talking about some paper or strategy here. We are talking about the St. Luke Hospital in Oromia region, Ethiopia. You can go on Google Maps and see it. It's very specific. Yes. And that is how can this hospital can play a role in the local community. Yeah, is how can we ensure that a woman and his daughter or son have access to quality healthcare services in Ethiopia. And this is Ethiopia, but I can say Angola, I can say Mozambique. And each country is different because the culture is different, the system is different, the economy, the way the things are negotiating at community level are different. So it's really about tailoring services to the need of the community. You can only do it locally, and possibly you have to do it with the local human resources. And this is a big challenge, because if you are in Uganda, where we have free hospitals, that's a very mature health system. Uganda are excellent professionals. They do research. They're amazing professionals. They're fantastic. Of course, if you go to South Sudan, that's nobody's fault, but it's the youngest African country. It's been at war since the independence from Sudan, and there was no space to train doctors. There was no space to train nurses. CUAMM, for example, has run probably the only midwife school in the country with a great problem on instability and security, and we graduate the first 20 midwives of the country. So in that case, you need some big external aid. You need maybe the Italian doctor or the UK doctor that goes there, train people, work in the hospital. So you have to do a lot of service delivery. So, but we hope that one day South Sudan will be like Uganda. So that's a path we want to start. So that's why it's very important. You need to be sure that you understand the need of the community. And on the other side, you have to make sure that everything you do is kind of absorbed by the local capacity, human capacity, infrastructure, government, politics, policy. Otherwise, it's not sustainable.
No, and you need to work with the local communities, because you're looking at building long-term infrastructures. And not just going in there and delivering, putting a plaster over it and hoping for the best. This is long-term infrastructures across all of Africa. And then identifying the different areas that you need to put more support in place to. What's the kind of long-term goal? Because obviously, like you've mentioned, there's quite a lot going on in terms of cultures in Africa, and in terms of the different regions, and in terms of who needs what support when, and how you manage that.
The overall goal, I don't think is changing. In a nutshell, I could say that every women and children have access to quality healthcare services in Africa. So that's our goal. That's the goal. But it's true that in the last 3 to 4 years, the African continent has changed so much because of the crisis I mentioned. Imagine Tigray, Cabo Delgado, the South Angola crisis, the South Sudan, Central African Republic. There are lots of countries that are in a crisis somehow. Okay, so even our approach is changing. Now we have, I would say, 2 legs of work, mainly 2 legs. One is the classical healthcare strengthening piece of work that takes long time, is focused on training on local human resources, is focused about understanding the bottlenecks to access healthcare services, is about really understanding the context, the need, and what I said about, putting all the pieces together and provide the services. The other one is about humanitarian response. Even CUAMM UK today cannot be able to do a quick humanitarian response when needed. As we speak, only week ago, we are working on the Freddy, the cyclone that hit the Mozambique. So we are already working in Mozambique, and you have an increased number of cyclones coming to this country. You have to intervene. So we now have a specific program to address the cholera epidemic that often come after the cyclone because the contaminated water and everything that's happening. Again, in Tigray, North Ethiopia, probably we cannot just thinking about the hospital and the need of the community. We have to do at least the first 6 months emergency intervention, let's call it, and then attach everything we do to a longer-term plan and development. But we also need this rapidity, these quick action that are compensating things that are happening again in this continent, this African continent, that is, I hope is a turning point to better, but is definitely in a critical phase at this moment.
On Becoming More Human is about sharing real stories. And I wondered if there's an encounter with a family that you're able to share with us, just to give us a bit more of a personal insight into what you see down on the ground in Africa.
Well, I have many stories, and I guess that they all deserve to be represented. But probably now I'm thinking of one of the best stories I remember, that is about the Kuplumusana group. Kuplumusana is a women HIV positive kind of support group. Kuplumusana means, in the local dialect, helping each other. And this group has an incredible story because it started when I was living in Mozambique. There was a pediatrician, a good friend of mine called Maria Laura, and we had a problem. We had a problem because this was like more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago, so now you know about my age.
Now we're going back a bit.
So 15 years ago, there was a big problem of stigma, and make sure that these women can access HIV treatment, But the stigma was so strong. So the typical story was that a woman come to an health center, get the HIV testing, the husband knows she's positive, and she lose everything. So she lose the family, she lose the house, she lose everything. So they were basically on the street. They were not taking treatment because, what's the point of getting better if I lost everything?
Right.
And they were dying. And this lady started to say, why don't you come on Saturday morning to my house? We have something to eat. We discuss about your problem, and I want to talk about taking the pills because we'll help you. And, maybe one lady went, then 2, then 5, then 10. And then we thought, why don't we formalize this group? And this group went to a process that was a bit lengthy, but I'm proud to say that today they are a Mozambican officially recognized NGO. So Kuplumusana is an NGO.
Wow.
It's no longer like a group of patients for us, it's a partner.
Yeah, wow.
And these women are incredible because now they have the organization. They do peer-to-peer support group in the health center. So when a woman comes, they had through the whole process, the devastating process of dealing with the HIV positive, the stigma, the husband, the family, the community, and they do the peer-to-peer support. They convince people to stay on treatment because that is the main thing. If you are today on treatment for HIV, you live a normal life. So that's massive. It was a big change. It's huge, isn't it?
But you need to be educated and you need to feel trusted. And
you feel trusted, but again, probably you trust somebody that's been through it.
Yeah,
more than even CUAMM. So that was a fantastic story. It's always motivating me.
Really motivating.
Yeah.
Because it just shows you power of community and it shows you the power of sort of humankind.
That's the thing.
And peer-to-peer is what we need, and we need community to help one another, and it grows into something wonderful. They now sound like they're operating at a really high level with you
They're
guys.
really operating. They are partners.
Yeah.
Exactly, partners, but they even do more. Now, for example, because they have the funding problem, they do catering. So they cook for wedding, they cook for our conferences in Mozambique. So they're fantastic and they're really good food.
They're really
by the way.
capitalised now, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They have their own house, the office and everything. And I was wondering, you know, sometimes you go back because sometimes it's frustrating. You know, our job sometimes can be very frustrating. Yeah. And you back and say, you know, if if a woman that lost everything, HIV positive, in a poor country, because Mozambique is still a poor country in many cities, can do that, can create an organization, we not study. I mean, they didn't study. They study after because we pay some, you know, fellowship, etc. They can do that, really. So Andrea, lots more we can do as well.
There is. So Andrea, where does that come from? Where does that inner drive come from? Where does that hope or faith come from? I mean, you must have seen that type of faith, you know, a few times since working out in the field. Where does that inner faith come from? And is it faith, in fact? You know, what is it that drives them to not give up?
Well, again, it's I don't know if it's faith or not. I'm sure that you have to believe that you can change things. Or at least you have to accept you cannot change some things. Of course, if you work in Africa today, and I told you how many friends, African friends I have, you also have to accept in certain circumstances that you do a mission to a place and you meet people and maybe the next time you go there, they're gone.
That's harsh.
But still you know that at least you met them in your life.
Yeah.
And their stories... as long as we do like this thing and we tell these stories to the people, are not lost.
Exactly.
So I think the biggest enemy today in our lives is to accept everything that is happening. Like, you know, it's just like that. Like war is normal. No, war is not normal. You know, people in Africa die from malaria, HIV. Is normal. No, that's not normal. We cannot accept that, again, a woman giving birth dies, you know, from giving birth a baby. That's not acceptable. We should really say this is not good. This is not good for us as human beings.
Yeah.
No matter where you are, no matter if you have a good job or not, no matter your social status, but you really is... I still probably a dreamer, or I believe it, but I believe we are a human community. And becoming more human is recognizing that there is a big community of people that are, as I said before, they're all trying to improve their lives. And many of the families are just trying to improve their life for their kids. Even in Africa, even in the countries that we see maybe in the newspaper as war or problematic or very poor. But really, when you go down to the family level, I feel them like a bit like they are my family. The plans we make are the same, believe me. It doesn't matter if you are in Mozambique or in Italy, Angola or South Sudan. At the end of the day, really, everybody's taking a journey and they hope in what they believe. If it's a family or if it's a lone journey, it doesn't matter. They are trying to be happy. And
that's all they want.
And we have to recognize that as a human kind of bigger community and not just thinking about just ourselves.
And it's certainly easier said than done in the Western world, given where we all are currently. And, you know, the rise of technology and social media and how, you know, COVID swept in and made us all much more isolated, I think, and more focused on ourselves than ever before. But, you know, we really want to inspire people to get out there and start doing more philanthropic work. And how can people get involved with Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK?
I think that they have to be involved in sharing the mission. That's the first thing. Even before donating, is we have to share the fact that probably we can change life for people with the job we are doing. So I think sharing the mission of Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK means believing that we can provide services, healthcare services to women and children in Africa, believing that is a positive thing. And we all benefit from that. Really globally, we can benefit from a better healthcare system in Africa. That's for sure. And the COVID pandemic is just an example of that. But also, I think today, more than ever, there is a great need from private contribution. Because what we are seeing in this country, UK, and in Europe, somehow in the US, there's been a big cut in international cooperation funds. And this is due possibly because the crisis, somehow because donors are becoming frustrating because of the situation seen not improving, the pandemic, the social unrest I've been talking to you. But if we channel the right resources from philanthropic, from company, we have a number of companies that support the works of CUAMM in Africa, from the general population that want to donate to a concrete action on the field. So that's the key. That's any donor should ask is my money are getting to the field and where? And you have to report to me in the way you can, of course, but we are in the social media era, so we cannot live feed and everything, and say, I'm supporting this hospital in this community because it's providing these services. I like concrete things, and I think that there is a big role from private funding, but at the same time we need to make sure that these private funds are reaching the local community. And that's where probably we have a role and a responsibility as a CUAMM UK.
And to demonstrate that transparency, so when people are putting their money to you, they can see it. And I think from everything I can see, the work that you're all doing out there is just fantastic, and it's incredible. It's certainly really awe-inspiring. I wondered, over the years, has it kind of changed your outlook on life and your personal values in any way?
Absolutely. I think I've been definitely learning a lot from my job. I've been learning a lot from traveling, meeting people. I've been learning a lot from the local community, the way they live their life with less, but maybe it's easier somehow.
Yeah.
I understood that if you have more, it doesn't mean you're happier. Because I really see in Africa so much joy, so much life, so much young people. I mean, the African continent is the youngest continent. And that's when you travel to Africa, you can feel that. You can see in the music, you can see in the kids in the street, you can see the local toys, you can see the life that is, pumping really in the street and try to do whatever they want. You can see in the, young people driving taxi motorbikes or in the women going to the market and try to sell something, and get something else and all this chaos. Is actually life, and it's beautiful.
It is,
It's colorful, as you see, and is really what I think is the biggest lesson that I had is really trying to enjoy life and to see and to learn from the others. Even if they have less, it doesn't mean they don't have nothing to teach you. It's the opposite. Yeah,
it almost comes from all the intrinsic parts, rather than what we think in the Western world, which is very much about things, and the more things we collect, the happier we might be, or the more successful we might look to other people.
Yeah.
So would you say that kind of is your biggest sort of life lesson to date from all your work out there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely is one of the bigger lessons. The second one is that still believe in a change. Okay. We are hearing a global level, many problems, and I still see that there is a positive way in which you can see the future. And again, probably we have to donate, meaning really we have to get ourselves free for our, as a possession sometimes, the things we own, and be a bit more human and real, and accept something that is less, but to give more. I think that is possibly something that we have to learn to do.
I think that's a really valuable lesson we definitely all need to learn. On this podcast, we ask our guests, is there a piece of media that's maybe inspired them? So a book, a piece of art, a play. I'm going to tell you a little story from my side, actually, when I was a student studying my A-levels, and I went to Peru to film a documentary with the street children. And I was working with a charity, and the plan was, well, I actually didn't have a plan. I was listening. So hopefully someone may be inspired by you now today. That's the plan. You know, I was listening to Radio 2, Elaine Page, and she was talking about her trip to Peru and the children that she met out there. And that really inspired me to want to go out there and do some good. So I was studying media studies, and we created a documentary about the students. And it was students filming to take it back over here to sort of show the rest of the students what's going on in other parts of the world. And I was in the middle of the shanty towns in a mud hut, and I saw one of the kids had a picture of David Beckham on his wall. And I was, I was probably 17 at the time, 16. So, I was evidently very unworldly wise. So that really did take me back. I just thought, wow. There's nothing else here. There's literally nothing. This is a mud hut, and you've got a picture of David Beckham, and he was inspired by it. And that sort of inspired me to sort of get out of my head, to think bigger, to look at the world. And we're all just the same at a very, very human level. And that bit of media at the time inspired me. So has anything happened to you during your sort of last however many years? we weren't putting a number on it, Andrea. Have you seen anything? And has there been a bit of sort of media or something that's really inspired you? Maybe that's come from the families or the children directly from Africa, or anything that you've seen?
Well, there are a number of things, of course. And before becoming humanitarian, let's say, as a professional, I read a book was called Inshallah by Oriana Fallaci, an Italian journalist that went to cover the Lebanon, the first conflict, the war, many years ago.
Right.
It was 1990. When I read the book, was 1997, I guess. So I was very young, and she was telling, like you said, she was traveling, witnesses things. I think the fact that she was describing stories and what's happened during the conflict was something that said, oh, wow. I mean, there is something else out there going on. I want to be there. I want to see it, because I want to make sure that it's true. And this book it's not an easy book to read.
It's interesting that you're just saying that bit there. I want to make sure it's true.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, because that sometimes people don't think that or have that connection.
Yeah, but that's one of the problem. You need to get out there. There's nothing wrong with it. Go and see, because when you see things, you will look differently.
Yeah.
What can I say? I mean, today we have so many information, but really they are mediated by somebody else. Somebody that wants to travel and see things probably will come back with a different view of the issue, the main issue that we discuss in the media in Italy or UK or Europe. So that was definitely a book that was inspiring to me, and then led to me then to do my first travel, and then the second travel. Then my life-changing experience was Angola in 1999 during the Civil War. I was there for 18 months. And if I remember an episode, it's really not about the war and the drama and the so many things that we saw. It's about sharing a beer, having a beer during the evening with two Angolan friends, and they were talking about where they were recruiting in the army, and they were fighting, and one night they were like hiding in a cemetery because they were too afraid, they were laughing about. So they were laughing about, you remember, we went down the stone and they were bombing or something like that. It was like that. Come on, guys, there's nothing to laugh about.
Yes,
and they were just laughing their life away, it was so cool. And so I thought, if these guys can be happy having a beer and even in this massive drama, I mean, the Angolan war was, really devastating.
Yeah.
And they were like trying again to live their life, be together, have a little of a laugh. And that was very inspiring to me to keep going.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. What can happen if they had to do that? Keep going.
I love that. I love that. So what does the future look like for Doctors of Africa with CUAMM UK?
Wow, I think bright. No, I just want to joke. But I think the future of Doctors with Africa CUAMM UK will depend and how much the people in this country and other country will want to believe that, again, the human community is worth it, and that we have to invest more resources in Africa, specifically in Africa for our work, but of course there are many places in the world, because we have to believe that if everybody is better, we are all better. I mean, you know what I mean. So if we cannot accept any longer that we have this situation in Africa, we cannot accept any longer that, again, there is another war or something like that. So we have to be a bit pushy with our government, with the institution like the United Nations and the big organization to be more active, to denounce what's happening in certain country. And at the same time, we have to be receptive. So I think the future of Doctors with Africa CUAMM will really be bright if we can put together the international effort, meaning the government and the public system, but at the same time, private people that want to join and believe in the mission of CUAMM and be transformative in Africa and transform people's lives in Africa.
Thank you. I'm going to have one final question,
Okay.
though, which we have to ask everyone this, is what does becoming more human mean to you?
I've been thinking a lot about, becoming more human in my work wants to be is to go beyond numbers. We are getting used to read numbers. Okay, this number of that number of that. Yeah. But these are people. When you read in a report that kids are dying from malaria, and you read every day, that's not a number. That's a person. So becoming more human is really about, say that if you donate, or if you put a number of a report, or if you study a disease, what you are touching is the life of somebody. It's not just like a paper or something written or an image. What's behind of our work is really what happening to a family, to a person, to a child, or to a woman, and how we can change that in better.
Yeah.
And we have to become more human, because otherwise we miss the picture. Because if we only talk about the policies that are very important, if we only talk about the administrative process or the processes, we are losing the real picture, that is, how can I change this women's life or this child? In our case, providing better healthcare services, but sometimes you cannot just do it in a strategy. You have to do it on the field,
on the ground,
and you have to get your hand dirty sometime and really, make sure that thing is provided, or the life is changed, or a treatment is performed.
Yeah. Well, I think that has to be one of the best answers to that question we have had, Andrea. Yeah. And I think it's so good that you have spelt that out for people, because we often just look at those numbers and, turn the page of the newspaper again, and we flick off the TV, because, we've been bombarded with numbers over the last sort of 3 years, more than we have ever. So we are turning off to them. And I think as a nation, we need to lean in and really look at those and sort of start making a difference. And whether you're an organisation or an individual, there's still so much you can do. So we will make sure that we have all of your information on our website, so people can go online and see, and they can also donate easily as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, so much for your time. It's been an honour to have you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Francesca Donnellan, and you've been listening to Becoming More Human, the podcast. You can follow Becoming More Human on Instagram, subscribe, rate and review the podcast on your podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple, Amazon and Google. And don't forget to check out our website for exclusive audio content on becomingmorehuman.co.uk. Join me next week for another inspiring conversation. Thank you for listening.